Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Prococo, and I'm the Director of Transfers, Refunds, Enrollments at the MTRS. And today I'll be presenting today's webinar on implementing the new R Plus election changes for employers. This is the second webinar that we've had. We had one last Wednesday. We had a little over 200 people show up, and it was a great webinar. People asked a lot of great questions. So you will have that same opportunity today during today's webinar. And before we get started, I just want to thank everyone involved that got us here today to this point. There are way too many people and organizations, members to thank that got us here. But if you don't know, this is almost 6 years in the making to get this law changed and to get to where we are today. So I am very happy to be here this morning to be able to give this webinar and to go over the changes for R+. So with that being said, let's get started. We have a lot of important information to cover today. Let's see. So today's presentation is broken into 5 different parts. The first one is the need for Chapter 134 of the Acts of 2022, which is the new R+ law. Part 2 is the special election that we'll cover that we're currently in the middle of right now. Part 3 is the new election process for transfers received by the MTRS. Part 4 is the elimination of elections. And part 5, we will go over the new R+ resources that we have for both employers and members. Our communications department spent a lot of time revamping that on our website, and we will show you a live demo later on. So part 1, the need for the new R+ law. Before we go into the need, a lot of people don't understand what Retirement Plus is. So we'll quickly go over the benefits and why it's important for members to know what R+ is. So R+ is an enhanced benefit. And as you know, as a public employee in the state of Massachusetts, we all have defined benefit plans. And what that means is that we will receive a guaranteed benefit for the rest of our lives. So that benefit is based off of 3 factors. You have your age, your service, and a salary average. So for example, if you have a member, their salary average is $100,000 and they retire with a max benefit of 80%, they will get an annual pension of $80,000 for the rest of their lives. So that age and service is used to calculate that 80%, and that's the highest you can get. So what does Retirement Plus do? It gets you to that 80% a little bit faster than a regular retirement would. And when I explain this to members over the phone, I usually use my example to try to explain it. So I started in the system when I was 23, and with a regular retirement, I would reach the 80% benefit at 61 or 62. But with Retirement Plus, I would be able to reach my 80% when I was around, or when I get to about 58. So it does shave a few years off depending on your situation, and everyone's situation is different, depending on when you start in the system and how many years of service you have. But once people hit 30 years, that percentage increases by 12%. And then every year after that, it increases by another 2%. So when you get to 31 years, it goes to 14%. 32 years, it goes to 16%, and so on. So we have retirement percentage charts online that everyone can look at, and you can see the difference in the percentages that people would get between Retirement Plus and a regular retirement. One important thing is that members have to be eligible and participating in Retirement Plus in order to achieve that enhanced benefit. So with Retirement Plus, you have to have at least 30 years of service. 20 of them have to be with the MTRS or Boston. And the other 10 can be from another retirement system or through a service purchase. We'll call that non-membership service. So the rate system in Massachusetts is a little complicated. You can see all the different rates we have in the system, but it's important to know the difference between what people contribute for Retirement Plus and what people contribute if they're not participating in Retirement Plus. So if we start at the bottom, and we focus on that middle column there, not participating in Retirement Plus, you'll see that people who started in the system before January 1st of 1975 contributed at a rate of 5%. Then as you move up, you can see between January 1st, 1975 through December 31st of 78, people would contribute at 7%. Then starting January 1st of 79, things got a little funky in the rate system in Massachusetts. Um, so between that date and December 31st of 83, you can see that it's 7% and then plus 2% on earnings over $30,000 per year. Um, then you move up January 1st of 84 through June 30th of 96, it's 8% on all of the gross earnings plus an additional 2% on earnings over $30,000 a year. So you can see as we move up that the plus 2 stays with the rate as the regular rate increases. So when we get to 96, July 1st, 96 through June 30th of 01, that rate is 9 plus 2. So 9% on all of your gross earnings, and then an additional 2% on earnings over $30,000. Then July 1st, 2001 through April 1st, 2012, excuse me, the rate anywhere else in any other Massachusetts retirement system is that 9 plus 2. We'll call it 9 plus 2 for short. But then members who started brand new with the MTRS with no other service anywhere else, MTRS or Boston would be required to contribute at 11%. And that is for Retirement Plus. So anyone that started on or after July 1st, 2001 is mandated into Retirement Plus. And that is only with the MTRS or Boston. Then in 2012, we had another pension reform, and members who started in any retirement system across the state other than the MTRS or Boston would still have that 9 plus 2 rate. But then once they hit 30 years of creditable service, their rate would decrease by 3%. And that's statewide for Tier 2 members. But if someone started with the MTRS or Boston within that time period, they would be mandated into Retirement Plus at 11%. And then at 30 years of service, that would decrease to a flat 8% with no additional 2% because we don't have that on Retirement Plus. So as you can see, there are a lot of rates here. It can be confusing. We have this grid up on our website, so if anyone ever had to reference this, it's available 24/7. One point of confusion is the difference between 11% and that 9 plus 2 rate. So I referred to that rate earlier as 9 plus 2. So like I said, the rate for R plus is a flat 11% on all gross earnings. And then the lower non-retirement plus rate for a lot of municipal employees is 9% with an additional 2% taken on earnings over 30,000. So like I called it on the previous slide, 9 plus 2, it is commonly referred to as 9 plus 2 or 9 and 2. And in the Massachusetts pension system, 9 plus 2 is the only place where it does not equal 11%. And people think that that is Retirement Plus because it is plus 2, and they might see it on their pay stubs as Ret 2 or plus 2, and that's not Retirement Plus. So really important for people to know that. And I think that there could be some new payroll officers or someone that are new in their positions or new to the Mass pension system It's just important to know that that 9 plus 2 does not equal 11%. And no matter what anyone makes, the difference between the two rates is always going to be $600 per year. That's just the way the math works out. So if ever anyone wanted to know what the difference is, that's what it is. So now the need for the new R plus law. So as I stated earlier, as of 7/1/2001, all MTRS members and people who start in Boston are mandated into Retirement Plus. And that means that that's the law. That's what they have to contribute. It's 11%. Except for people transferring into the MTRS from another one of the other 103 retirement systems across the state. So a common example is a teacher's aide who became a teacher. They would have contributed at a local retirement system, and then when they become a teacher, they would transfer to the MTRS. So what the MTRS did for years is instruct employers to withhold 11% for all new hires until the transferring member made their R plus election. And we did that because a lot of the teachers starting in the system were brand new. A lot of them didn't have 11%, or a lot of them didn't have prior service, so we would have to request the schools to withhold that 11%. And at the time of onboarding, um, members kind of don't know where they're contributing. They might already think they're a member of the MTRS. They might not know that they contributed to a local retirement system. Um, we're all not fortune tellers, so we don't know where someone could have contributed before. Um, so transfers by nature can't be requested in a timely manner from when someone starts. The MTRS's regulation provides that there is 180 days from the date that we receive the transfer from the other system to give someone an R plus election. So what that election is to give someone the choice to be in Retirement Plus at 11, or they could maintain one of their lower rates that we covered on the other slide. Just because Retirement Plus might not make sense for some people, they have the choice if they want to contribute at their lower rate. So throughout the years, because people were contributing at 11%, they thought that they were automatically in Retirement Plus since their MTRS membership date. So because transfers may not have occurred for years, people just thought that they were automatically in. And why does it take years for that to happen? Well, we've had a lot of untimely enrollments, and the last several years we've worked on cleaning up a backlog to get members to enroll. And I bet that there are a lot of people on this webinar viewing today that have tried chasing their employees to complete their enrollment in a timely manner. So when people don't complete the paperwork or their online enrollment in a timely manner, then we don't know about the funds at the other board. So that creates an issue. And then sometimes people create or complete their enrollment and they forget to notify us of their other service because they might not know that it's at the other board, or they would have thought that they were at the MTRS the whole time. So it creates a situation where someone contributes at 11% for a long time, and then they have the choice to either stay in um, or maintain their lower contribution rate. So the way the law used to be written is that if people didn't respond to these election notices, they counted as no elections, and it would default members out of Retirement Plus. Um, so, people would get these notices in the mail, 3 letters over the course of 6 months, and they thought that they didn't have to do anything with them because they thought they were in Retirement Plus, but that wasn't the case. So members would get very upset when they would retire for retirement. They would figure out they're not in Retirement Plus, and it resulted in hundreds of appeals. And not only retirements, but if we're researching someone's case and we sent rate change notices to districts, members would get really upset when they found out they were not in Retirement Plus. And rightfully so, because as I talked about on the first slide, um, It's an enhanced benefit. It gives people a chance to retire sooner. So when they figure out that they're not in it, they get upset. Um, and each year that number would continue to grow. And without legislative action, it would just continue to grow um, every year. So that is the need for the change, and which is why I'm happy to be here given this webinar, because we can give people another chance. Do people have any questions about that first section?
Hi, Dave. We do have a couple of questions in the chat, and I encourage anyone who's attending to click on the Q&A button on your screen to reveal the Q&A panel where you can type questions into our chat room. And first question is, will the slides from this presentation be sent to the webinar participants? And yes, we will post these slides and a recording of the video today and send out an announcement when that is finalized. The next question for Dave, as an employer, how do I know when an employee reaches each rate?
When an employee reaches each rate. So we'll talk about this a little bit more in the presentation, but when you register somebody in my TRS, there is a screen, I believe it is the employee roster screen. You can go to that screen, and if they have previously established membership um, with our board or another board, then that rate will be in the system. So you can see if you should take 9%, 11, or if it's the 8 plus 2, 7 plus 2. You have access to that online.
Thanks, Dave. I don't see any other questions in the chat just yet, but I'm sure we'll have some more at the next Q&A stop.
Okay, great. Thanks. And that was Scott, our Director of Communications. Thank you for reading those and answering. All right, so we have part two, the special election. So those are for transfers received by the MTRS between 7101 and 6/30/2022. So when we talk about the eligibility for the special election, the law provides a final one-time opportunity to participate in R Plus. And if you think about a window of time where people established membership with the MTRS between or on or after July 1st, 2001 and June 30th, 2022. So you have that window of time. And the MTRS received a transfer within that same window of time between July 1st of '01 and 6/30/2022. And the person did not submit an election during that time period. They will have another one-time chance to elect into Retirement Plus. So very lucky that they have this special opportunity to elect in. There are some members that are not eligible for the election, and that was any person that was a member prior to 7/1/2001. And we've received a lot of emails and calls related to this group of people, and they are not part of this election because they don't fall within that window that I specified earlier, and because they were part of the original election back in 2001. So this slide is really important. That's why the top part is underlined. So members who receive the R Plus election packet are not automatically in Retirement Plus. It's the reason why they're in this election right now. It's because they have to make a choice on if they want to be in or not. It's not automatic. It's very important that they respond and submit their election. So even if the member has been contributing at 11% the entire time, which was one huge point of confusion with the old election process. They thought they were in Retirement Plus, but they are not. It is really important that they respond to this special election packet. So what our instruction should be, and yours if a member asks you a question, is that if they do not respond to the election, they will not be in Retirement Plus. Um, you and members can review the eligibility criteria. We have it on our website, on our newly revamped R Plus Resource Center. We have a lot of great information there. Um, so people have the chance to make an informed decision. There is a lot of material out there. Um, there's still time to elect. The deadline is 6/30/2023. That's a Friday. They should review the materials and make an informed decision on whether or not they want to participate in Retirement Plus. Um, so like I said, we're in the middle of this election period right now. The election packets were mailed on 1/11/2023 by our processing vendor, Yes Elections. So everyone was mailed their election to their home. People have the option to vote online. They'll receive a unique code that they would need to make their election. And they can also mail their election in using a paper ballot. And there's a prepaid envelope in there for people to submit those elections. So very important, they can make it online. That's a huge step in this process. And I believe we've already received over 1,000 elections so far. So we're glad to see that turn out in such a short period of time at the beginning of this process. And again, this period ends June 30th, 2023. It is extremely important that they respond by this date. If someone tries to submit their election on July 1st, it will not count. They will be marked as a no response and they will not receive another chance to be in Retirement Plus. So again, that's Friday, June 30th, and people have time to make this decision. And you know, over the years when people have had deadlines, people have mentioned, you know, they might have been going through a hardship or they were on a leave of absence. Can they get another chance? And you know, unfortunately, there's no provision in this law or even the prior law to allow people to make an election under special circumstances. So it is very important that people read up on this now and they should make their decision once they are ready to do so, but should do it before um, Friday, June 30th, 2023. So in order to be successful, the MTRS has some responsibilities, and we've already done a lot so far with this election. So we've already had a lot of communications to both employers and our members. Back on October 7th, we sent an email to all of our MTRS members just letting them know of the special law. And in that communication, we told everyone that we would be reaching out to the special group, excuse me, of people that would be receiving the special election. So we sent that email out on October 31st, 2022. And with that came some bounce backs for emails because we didn't have the right email address in the system. And some people didn't even get the email because we didn't have an email address. So what we did with those bounce backs and the people that didn't have an address, we sent letters to all of their houses to let them know that a special election would be coming. And we sent that out on November 10th. So we really tried to cover our bases in terms of trying to reach out to people to let them know of the special opportunity. Then we had employer broadcast emails. One went out on September 1st, another one on October 31st, and then another one on November 28th, 2022. Then back on January 12th, we emailed each superintendent a list of everyone that was eligible within their district to make this special election. So if there are superintendents on this webinar or payroll officers or HR officials that haven't seen the list, just reach out to your superintendent, ask them for a copy of the list, or if you are a superintendent, just go back to that date and take a look at the list that we sent you. And if you can't find it, just email us and we can re-forward it to you. Sometime in late March, I believe that we will be submitting or sending out another reminder to eligible members that they should be making this special election. And with that, I believe we will resend lists to all the school districts just to let you know who hasn't made an election yet. One thing with the list that we sent out on January 12th is that some members did not have email addresses. So we ask that if you can, please fill out the spreadsheet. In the email, there's a link to a portal where you can send us those lists, and we will take those email addresses and update them in the system. So if we ever try to reach out to them by email again, we'll have a lot of the emails. And that will also be important for rate changes later on. Um, so we also have these webinars, which we're having today, and we plan on having a webinar for all of the eligible members during school vacation week on Thursday, February 23rd at 9:30 a.m. So employers will be notified of rate changes. I think that's one of the biggest questions we're getting now is, when will we be changing rates? And we're going to be looking at the volume for that before we make a determination. But we will have a decision soon on when we'll be sending those rate changes. So your steps as an employer, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to send them to us. Also, to use our R Plus Resource Center, we spent a lot of time to put a lot of good material on there. So people should visit that so they can make their informed decision. Remind members to respond to the election. So again, I can't drive this point home enough. If someone asks you, do they need to respond to this election? Absolutely, they need to respond. Um, Even if they don't want to be in Retirement Plus, they should still respond and let us know that they do not want to participate, just because that will make things easier when we process rate changes later on in the future. Um, so you want to review the list of all of your eligible employees. And again, let us know of any changes that you need to make on the list, any missing email addresses, or if you notice that an address is wrong, just let us know and we can reach out to the vendor and make sure that they get that ballot. One important note about rate changes, please don't make them until you have been notified by the MTRS. I believe that there are members that have already made their elections and they're reaching out to schools to let them know that they made their election and that their rate should be changed. Please don't change it if someone reaches out to you. Only make the rate change when we send the request to you. We will make sure that the employee gets a copy of that rate change. And that's another reason why it's important for us to have their email, because they will be emailed on that rate change. So once the election is over, or once people have made an election, we will have to confirm rate changes through the deduction reporting process. So if someone's currently at a lower rate and we ask you to change the rate, before we can do anything, we have to see that rate change in the system. So there'll be a few different communications that go out depending on what people choose. So we'll have people that will choose to participate in Retirement Plus. They've always been at 11%. There's no need for a rate change or an invoice. We'll simply just send the member a confirmation that they're all set and in Retirement Plus, that they don't owe anything. And then we'll have a group of members that choose to participate in our Plus and have not always been at 11% during either a part or all of their MTRS service. We'll send them an invoice with installment options for amounts over $1,000. So again, we can't calculate anything until we see a rate change in the system. I know some people might be anxious to know how much they're going to owe. But we truly won't know the final amount until we see that rate change in the system. And some of you might be wondering, what are the different options to pay for R plus? And one of them mentioned on the slide is that if it's over $1,000, there'll be a 5-year installment plan, which they can choose, or they could also pay it in full. Or if they have a 403B pre-tax type annuity account, they could potentially roll that money over pre-tax to pay for some or all of the invoice once they get it. If a member chooses to opt out of R Plus and they have paid at 11% during any time of their MTRS service, the member will receive a refund of excess contributions. And that will be through either a payroll credit or a direct refund from the MTRS. So we sent these notices to almost 8,000 people. So I would imagine it would take at least 6 months after the end of the election period to start processing certain things like invoices and refunds. Um, so for members that are concerned about the cost of R Plus, there is time to save for this because chances are we might not be sending out invoices until the end of this calendar year. So if they don't have a 403B account and they want to set one up, now would be the time to do that and get going on those pre-tax contributions. Or if someone's currently contributing to a 403B, they can up their contributions if they want, to make sure that they would have enough to cover what they would owe for their R plus cost. And another question might be, well, what is it going to cost? And that's up in the air, and we can talk about that later on when we look at our website. For members retiring, if they plan on retiring by the end of the year, they shouldn't delay filing their retirement application. So if they do retire and they do owe money, or if they plan on retiring and they do owe money, we will expedite their invoice to them. And some of you might be behind on deduction reports. So what we would have to do is reach out to you or the payroll office and get an export of all of their unposted contributions so we can use that to calculate the final invoice amount. So we're in this together. We're here for you if you have any questions, and consistent messaging is key. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions regarding this election. I believe we've already had one school district that told all of their employees to reach out to us to question their rate, and that is incorrect. It's just these special people that were on the list that were sent that should be getting the special attention and should be making this election. So again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Does anyone have any questions about this special election?
Hey, Dave, we do have a few questions in the chat. The first one is, can you see in the employer portal if an employee is participating in R plus?
Yes, so great question. You can, in my TRS on that roster screen, you can see if someone is participating in R plus. So currently, everyone that is in this special election, right now in the system, it shows that they are not participating in Retirement Plus. So what we're going to do is get information from the vendor that shows who has elected to participate and who has elected not to participate. For those who elect to participate, we have to go in and manually change their status to show that they have elected to be in R plus. So I believe we have almost 1,000 people now who have elected to participate. So that's going to take a little time on our end to go in and make those changes. But eventually it will show that they are participating in R plus, and you can see that on that screen.
Thanks, Dave. I can take this next one. The question is, what if the member lost or misplaced their election packet? In the event of a lost or misplaced ballot, you can have the member email us at retirementplus@trb.state.ma.us. That email address will be displayed further during the presentation, or they can call our main number and we will verify their eligibility and then put them on the list to receive a replacement ballot. The next question is, when do the rate changes for the election become effective?
Great question. We'll cover that later on. But I can just tell you really quick now is that once we send the rate change, it should be on your next available payroll that you can process.
What happens if a member chooses R plus, but then doesn't work in the system for 30 years? What happens with the difference in the contribution?
Great question. So if they choose to participate in R Plus and they don't meet the requirements at the time of retirement, they will receive a refund between the 11% and that lower rate that they established at their other retirement board. So they will get that money back.
Does the invoice money get taken from paychecks or does the employee pay it with a personal check?
Another great question. So we don't have the ability to accept payments through payroll. If that ever changes, we would let employers know. But at the moment, they can pay with a personal check if they want, or they have that 5-year installment plan. They would have to make 5 equal payments annually, which includes interest, or they have the ability to roll money over from another pre-tax financial institution, if the financial institution allows it. But they should most likely allow that transfer to happen.
Right. Uh, how do we reach out to you?
Great question. So we have an inbox specifically for Retirement Plus. It is retirementplus@trb.state.ma.us. And you can find that in our R Plus Resource Center, and it'll also be at the end of this presentation.
Great. Last question for now. How soon after members make their decision will employers be notified that they should be making a change to the contribution rate?
Another great question. So that's something that we're still trying to plan on right now. I believe we're close to a decision on what we're going to do. We wanted to see the volumes first before we made any decision, because there are a lot of members involved. Um, but I believe that if we can, we will try to start sending rate changes soon. But like I mentioned earlier, first we have to go in the system and change people's statuses to show that they're in Retirement Plus. And then once we can do that, I would imagine that we will start some rate changes.
Okay, one more question came in.
Okay.
How can I tell if I am enrolled in Retirement Plus?
Okay. So if you are a member of the system, and also an employer, um, if you have access to My TRS, you can actually probably look yourself up on the employee roster screen. If not, you can go to your payroll official, anyone who processes payroll in the system, or anyone who registers new employees in the system should have access to that screen. So you can look and see if you are already in Retirement Plus.
That's it for now.
Okay, good questions, everyone. Okay, part 3. So now we're going to talk about the new election process for transfers, another big change in the law that just passed. So these are for transfers that are received by the MTRS on or after 7/1/2022, with membership service prior to 7/1/22. So if you think about that window of time that we talked about earlier, so someone starts with the MTRS on or after 7/1/2001. Um, if they started with us after that date because they weren't part of the original election and they have a transfer into the MTRS on or after 7/1/2022, they must now opt out of Retirement Plus if they do not want to participate. So that's a big change in the law, because the way it used to work is that if people wanted to be in, they had to opt in within 180 days from the MTRS receiving the transfer. But now they must opt out of R plus. So if they want to retain that older or lower rate that they had in their previous retirement system, now would be the time to opt out, and that's after we receive that transfer. If they fail to elect out of Retirement Plus, they default into R plus. They will be required to contribute at 11% until they retire, because that no response counts as a yes election, and they will be in R plus. So that fixes the issue of people defaulting out. Or I've heard people say that they have been kicked out of R plus because they didn't respond. That will not happen anymore. They will default into Retirement Plus. And just like anyone who is making the election now, if they want to participate in Retirement Plus, this counts as a yes election. So at the time of retirement, if they do not meet the requirements for R plus, they will get a refund between 11% and the lower rate that they established at their other retirement system. Um, so that's huge for members transferring in and defaulting into R plus, and also electing to participate in R plus. So for now, continue to take 11% for new members that you register into the system, because chances are they're brand new, and they might not have a transfer, or if there is a transfer, they will have the chance to opt out, and then we can change their rate at the time that they opt out. But in general, for anyone registering anyone in the system, um, we strongly encourage you to go to that roster screen to see what the member's rate should be, because there are a lot of teachers that move around every year. I think if we have 10,000 new registrations, about half of those are teachers moving around from district to district. So chances are they could already have made a Retirement Plus election, and they could be at a lower rate. So you'd want to go to that screen and see what their rate should be in the system. Does anyone have any questions about the new transfer in election process for people that transfer in on or after 7/1/2022?
Hi, Dave. No questions about the new process just yet, but there is one new question in the chat. Is there a link to the February 23rd webinar that I can share with my employees? We are setting that up now, and we plan to send the invite to eligible members today, and we can share that information with employers as soon as we do that. One more question in the chat. If we have money in an IRA, can we transfer to our current MTRS account?
You should be able to, but there are some important things to know, because I think some members get anxious and they want the money to go over right away when they choose to participate in R plus. But that transfer cannot occur until we send out an invoice. So like I said, these invoices might not go out until the end of the year or after the end of the year. So there is time to save and continue contributing to an IRA if you already have one. And if you don't have one, now is the time to set it up and start making those contributions to the system. A lot of the financial institutions should transfer the money over. I think in rare circumstances, they may not. And I can use my own example just to let you know. When I first started in the system, I had maybe 2.5 months of service to buy back. from when I was younger. And I had already started contributing to a 403B in my previous job. So when I started here, I already had that supplemental retirement set up. So I thought, great, I can use that money and transfer it over to pay for my service purchase. Um, the amount I owed, I believe, was around $300. So, it's a fairly small amount. And when I went to do the rollover, the financial institution wouldn't let me do it because it was under $1,000. I believe it was TIAA CREF at the time. So things could have changed since then. I believe that's, around 16 years ago. But there are limits to some of the rollovers.
Okay, a couple more questions. Next one is, am I hearing that some of these changes may happen prior to June 30, 2023?
It is possible. It's a good question. It is possible that some of the changes could happen prior to that date. Again, we have to look at the volumes and then just see how many people need a rate change. We haven't looked at the data yet. I hope that the 1,000 elections that we've had are all people that have already been at 11%. So we'll just have to see how many rate changes we'll actually have to make in the system before we do any of that.
Great. How do folks handle either receiving a credit or owing contributions crossing tax years? Does that have any implications for them?
It shouldn't have any implications for them. There shouldn't be any issues with that.
Okay, a couple more. So are all new members defaulted into R Plus regardless of transferring service?
Yes. So, well, I guess it's complicated. So if someone is brand new in a retirement system and they start with the MTRS on or after 7/1/2001, that person is mandated into Retirement Plus. That is just their rate. Um, Now, if the transfer is received on or after 7/1/2022, um, you should still be taking 11% for those people, because we hope that people actually read the materials that we send and respond to our notices. Um, but we know that there's a likelihood that that may not happen. And one of the changes for this law is to protect people from losing that enhanced benefit. So if they don't respond, they'll be in at 11% for R plus. So if you start taking 11% from the get-go, that is the rate that my TRS will tell you to take. So if you look at the roster screen, because they're brand new, the system probably doesn't know yet that they have funds at another board. You take the 11%. And then that is just what you take until we notify you to take a lower rate. But again, as I mentioned before, there could be people that have already made an election and have chose not to participate in Retirement Plus. You would see that lower rate in the system, and that is what you would want to take.
Okay, last question for now. I had two teachers opt out in September, but was told not to change their deduction from 11% until I was given the okay from MTRS. How long should this take to approve the opt out?
It shouldn't take that long to do a rate change. Um, if you can, for those two employees, send us an email and we'll take a look at their accounts, and we'll see what's going on with their rates.
Okay, that's all the questions for now. Thanks.
Okay, great. A lot of great questions. Good job, everyone. So now part four, we'll talk about the elimination of the election process for these transfers that are received by the system. So if someone establishes public membership in a local retirement system, doesn't matter if it's the MTRS or another board, as long as they establish membership on or after 7/1/2022, and that person transfers into the MTRS, the transfer would have to happen on or after 7/1/22 because we wouldn't have known about them before that period. They will be mandated into Retirement Plus. There is no election for those people. They will just be in the system at 11%. That is just their rate. Um, they're treated as tier 2 members because they are tier 2 members. So earlier on when we went over that rate screen, people that reach 30 years of service, they will have their rate drop to a flat 8% when the time comes. Um, and then also at the time of retirement, if they don't meet the 30-year service requirement for R plus, they will just still retire under a regular retirement, but still have contributed 11% to the system with no refund of any excess contributions. That is another part of the law, an important part of the law that changed, where eventually this election will be eliminated. Everyone transferring into the system will just be in at 11%, and that will be their rate. So again, when you're signing someone up in the system, when you're registering them, you want to go to the employee roster screen and take a look at their rate. If we have it in there as 11%, just take 11%. If it ever changes in the future, we will notify you of the rate change. But for anyone in this situation who has established public membership on or after 7/1/2022, and they transfer into the MTRS after that date, they will not have an election and be mandated to contribute in at 11% for Retirement Plus. So just for a quick recap of the three different groups that we have. So if you look at the top row, this is our special election group. So if someone became a member with the MTRS between 7/1/2001 and 6/30/2022, and the MTRS received a transfer between that same window of time, 7/1/01 and 6/30/22, and they did not respond to their election notices over that window of time, they have another one-time election to either participate or not participate in Retirement Plus. So again, I can't stress it enough. These people must make an election, and they have to do that prior to Friday, June 30th, 2023. It has to be done on that date. They should go make their election online if they can. They can do it in real time. And if they can't, they should make sure that they mail it to us and that it is postmarked by Friday, 6/30/2023. If it is after that date, they will no longer have another opportunity to be in Retirement Plus, and they will default out, and they will have a regular, they will be able to retire with a regular retirement. So again, it is really important that they respond to this. This is a one-time opportunity and they should respond. And like I mentioned earlier, they should review all of the materials we have on our website. They should make an informed decision. They have time to read on this and make an informed decision on whether or not they want to participate. If it's after 7/1/2023, they will not have another chance. If they get COVID the week before the deadline and they're not able to send something in, they're out of luck. They should have made their decision earlier. People should not procrastinate with this and make a timely election. Then we have our second group of people, and these are people that start with the MTRS on or after 2001, and they have a transfer into the MTRS on or after 7/1/2022. These members are automatically enrolled in R Plus, and they have to opt out within 180 days from the MTRS receiving that transfer if they do not want to participate in Retirement Plus. So if a member does not respond, they default to a yes. It counts as a yes election. So if the member participates and they reach retirement, they don't meet the requirements for R plus, they will receive a refund of the excess contributions between that 11% and that lower retirement rate that they had at their previous retirement board. And then you have the third group, and this is where the election gets eliminated. So if anyone starts in any system on or after 7/1/2022, become a member of MTRS, and a transfer comes in on or after 7/1/2022, that person is mandated into Retirement Plus. And they are just like any other new teacher that enter the system on or after 7/1, or I'm sorry, 4/2/2012, because they are Tier 2 members. They are required to contribute at 11%, and that is just their rate. They can't choose to opt out. They are just in at 11%. And when they go to retire, they will not qualify for any refund. That is just their rate in the system. um, does anyone have any questions on the election elimination or any of those processes in general?
Hi, Dave. We only have one question in the chat, and I'll take it in the interest of time. Will there be a recording of this webinar sent out? Yes, we are recording this webinar, and the recording and the slides will be posted shortly, and we will send out an announcement when that is complete.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, part 5 are R plus resources for employers and members. So as I mentioned earlier, we spent a lot of time putting a lot of good material on our website. Our communications team made an R plus resource center for members. And in there, you'll find a lot of good information. We'll show you a demo shortly. If anyone wants to know the difference between the 11 and the 9+2, we have calculations on there. We have examples that show the difference in the rate and how to calculate that. So we have videos on the R plus changes, everything that we covered today. There's a video on the special election. We have decision information, which we'll show you shortly, that goes over the eligibility, the benefits, and the costs associated with Retirement Plus. If members need a replacement ballot, we will verify their eligibility first just to make sure they're part of that special group, and then we'll reach out to our vendor to have them receive another ballot. And that ballot will come with a new code. So something that I didn't mention earlier is that when they get a new ballot, they will receive a new code in the mail to go in and elect online. So if we've requested one and they find their old ballot stashed away somewhere, they can no longer use that old ballot. They will have to use the new one that the vendor sends them because it will have a new code. And as mentioned before, if anyone has any questions, please have them email retirementplus@trb.state.ma.us for any questions. Do we want to go over the demo now for the website? Okay. Just a second. Okay. So we have our website up here. So when you go to our homepage, mass.gov/MTRS, you'll see that the R Plus Resource Center is right at the top of the page. It's the first thing you'll see. So you just click on that. And then you can see this brand new resource center. So we have videos on here that are embedded in the website. You can watch them right from there. You don't have to leave and go to YouTube to watch. It's right there. We have an R plus decision tree, and it can help people decide whether or not R plus makes sense for them. And if people will meet the requirements, you can see if you click on this this menu, it'll drop down and it'll give people options. First, you can see item number one, that percentage chart that'll show the differences in the percentages you can get between a regular retirement and R plus. Um, then you can compare your costs to see if it's worth the increase in benefits that you would get. Um, and then down below, depending on which rate you may be at, it'll let you know the costs associated to be in Retirement Plus. So you can see if you're a 9+2 member, we now know that that is not Retirement Plus, it's a lower rate, and that someone will owe $600 a year for every year that they would owe for being at a lower rate. And that could be different for anyone because we have people starting at various points in that 20-year, 21-year window. Some rates may have already been changed because we were operating under the old law. So it could be all over the place, but it's important to know that it's $600 a year that someone would owe. So if someone owed 10 years worth of contributions, it's 600 times 10, and that would be $6,000. And then for our 8+2 members, the calculation isn't as simple as the 9+2. The difference between the 9+2 and the 11, you don't get that $600 per year amount. But if you look at the annual salaries that you've earned over the years, you can see what the difference would be in contributions. So if you were at $40,000, it would be roughly $1,000 a year. And as you go up $10,000 in earnings, the amount that you would owe would increase by 100. So you can see the difference between 40,000 and 50,000. It's the difference between 1,000 and 1,100 that that person would owe. So someone could take a look at this and estimate how many years they were at a lower rate, and then get a rough estimate by looking at these costs. Um, and then if you don't meet the requirements, we have information here on what will happen. Um, So the important thing is that, if someone doesn't respond to this election, it's going to count as a no election. They will be defaulted out of Retirement Plus, and if they've been at 11%, they'll get a refund of their contributions. But it is important for that person to respond and let us know, and give us that affirmative not participating in Retirement Plus choice, to make things easier in the future when we have to rectify all of these accounts. But for those who don't want to be in Retirement Plus, there's a lot of great information here for them to read. Okay, and then, okay, I think we're going to end now and then go back to the presentation. But definitely check this website out. Like I said, we spent a lot of time to put all of this information on here. So you can take the time yourselves to go through there. And if members have any questions, direct them to this website. I think you just have to switch it back to mine. Just 1 second, we're switching back to the presentation. Okay, they can see it. So slide 28. Okay, so I'm going to move to slide 29. So important items for today. Like I said earlier, if anyone has any questions, please have them email the Retirement Plus inbox that we have set up. retirementplus@trb.state.ma.us. Anyone who received the special election packet is not automatically in Retirement Plus. They are not participating. It is very important that they submit that election, because if they want to participate in Retirement Plus and they do not respond by Friday, June 30th, 2023, they will not have another chance to participate. And even if they don't want to participate, they should still submit their election to choose that they do not want to participate in R Plus. But like I said before, they have time to make an informed decision. We have a lot of great information on the website, and they should read up on this before they make their decision. And if someone already believes they are in Retirement Plus because they have contributed at 11% their whole MTRS career, they are not automatically in. They still need to submit the selection form to our vendor. And, even with all the emails that we've sent out, the letters that have gone out, the election materials that have gone out, I still got an email from someone the other day that asked if they had to do something. And my response was, yes, you need to fill that out. You are not automatically in. If you want to be in, you need to select that you want to participate. So it was a little scary that someone asked that question, because we're trying to do our best to get all this information out there to tell people that they need to respond. But I would imagine that you will probably get these questions too, which is the reason we have this webinar today. So if someone asks you, do they need to respond? Yes, they need to respond, or otherwise they will not be in Retirement Plus. Don't change any rates until we notify you. We're working on that. We're going to look at the data, and when the time is right, we will send you a notification, but don't do it at the request of the member. And again, the window closes Friday, June 30th, 2023, and it has to be received by that date, postmarked by that date. It's a Friday. Saturday is July 1st. If they try to send it on that day, it does not count. They will not be in Retirement Plus. So it's important they get it in by that deadline date. Does anyone have any questions on any of the material that we covered today?
Yes, Dave, we do have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is, can I confirm what I think I just heard? That if a member who received the ballot does not return the opt-out, they will automatically be enrolled in R+.
So that is for the new group of people. So that's not for the special election. That is just for transfers that occur now in the new transfer process. So if we received a transfer on or after 7/1/2022, they must opt out. If they don't respond, that is correct. They will automatically default into Retirement Plus. It will count as a yes election. And that is not to be confused with the group of the special election people. It's different from them because they are under that old process. They essentially have another one-time bite at the apple to be in. They have to elect to participate if they want to be in. It's just the new group of people that if they do not respond, they automatically default in. So they're a little luckier in the sense that, if they don't pay attention to the materials, they're not going to be defaulted out. But for these special election people in this group that were on the list that were sent to superintendents, they must respond by that Friday, June 30th, 2023 deadline date.
Great segue. Is there a way to get a copy of the list of eligible members that was sent to our superintendent?
Yes. So if you email our inbox, that retirementplus@trb.state.ma.us, just let us know the name of your school district and we can forward you the list that was sent to the superintendent.
Great. It's an excellent question here. My superintendent forwarded the list of members to me that are eligible, and I have reached out to all of them. Can I see who on this list has responded to their election and who has not, so I can keep reminding those who have not?
Great question. So I believe at the end of this month or early March, we're going to create lists again and let you know who has not responded to the election. I wish that there was some kind of portal that people could just log into and kind of check everyone's statuses, but we don't have that. So we will let you know who has not responded in, I believe, early March. And I believe we may target one more time after that to give one more push to let you know who hasn't responded. So we will be in contact with all of you.
Great. Got a couple more. How long does an employee have to pay an invoice?
That is a great question. So once we send out the invoice, they will have 90 days to pay that amount off before interest starts to accrue. Um, so there is a little bit of time for them to make that payment. Um, but if they can't make it within the first 90 days, they have to enter the installment plan. Um, they have the option to pay it off over 5 years. And within that 90 days is when they would want to initiate that um, transfer or rollover process from their financial institution to pay for the invoice. And we have a form online that they would have to um, fill out if they wanted to make that rollover happen.
Great. We'll take one more question. Sorry if this is a repeat question, but if someone is at 9+2 and has replied to the election opting out, will we be able to see if they responded when we are logged into MyTRS? I can see someone who is marked as R+, so they must have opted in, but I am just trying to see who on my list does not need a follow-up email from me.
Okay. So don't be sorry for asking the question. If it's someone on the special election list right now, it should not show them as participating in Retirement Plus. Um, if someone has opted out, eventually, once we get through this whole election process, we're going to have to go in and change everyone's statuses. Um, After the election, we are going to try our best for everyone that elects in to change them to participating. But then there's going to be a period of time where all of the changes have been made and that will just be their R plus status in the system. So if they do not respond um, or they opt out, it will stay the same as it is now in the system and that they are not participating in R plus, and it'll show that lower rate in the system.
And that's it. That's all questions we have in the chat. Thanks,
O-
Dave.
Okay, great. Thank you everyone for attending today. I know everyone's busy, so we really appreciate the time that you took to join this webinar today. A lot of great questions. Thank you for attending. And as always, we are here if you have any questions, just visit our website or email the Retirement Plus inbox. Thanks and have a great day.